Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mile High Game Guys Board Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're here to talk about a few different games for our cooperative card placement review discussion episode that we're going to do.
Cooperative card placement with restrictions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird little niche of game, but the games we're going to be covering are Hanabi, the game, and the mind. We're going to start off with Hanabi. This is the oldest of the games that we're going to be reviewing. It is a 2010 release from designer Antoine Bauza, published by Asmodee here in the States. It plays 2 to 5 players and takes about 25 minutes. Zach, do you have a rules breakdown for us?
Yes, I do. In Hanabi, you are creating the most beautiful fireworks display through card placement. Each round, you can play a card, discard a card, or give a hint. Unfortunately, all of your cards are facing away from you. When giving a hint to another player, you can only identify a card value or a suit color, and you must identify all cards that match this hint. If you play 3 cards in the wrong order, the fireworks will go off prematurely, ending the game. Otherwise, you play until the draw pile is empty.
That is basically all there is to Hanabi.
Yeah.
All of these games are pretty simple from a rules overhead. It's definitely, they're ones where there's low rules, but depth of gameplay. So with Hanabi, this one I think we all played this way before the podcast. So
100%.
So it's not, so the initial thoughts going into it are going to be tricky. We'll still go through it here.
Initial vague thoughts.
Yes. Or like thoughts the most recent time you played it, when we started planning the review or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, let's start with you. Do you remember much of your first plays of Hanabi? Thoughts going into it?
I don't. I think this is right when I was starting the board gaming hobby. I'm assuming like either somebody played it, somebody brought it and played it, or I feel like I might have been the person to bring it.
I think you might have been.
Probably. A lot of these ones are in the early times I was. I'm assuming I just found it like on Board Game Geek, or this is still maybe when I was buying things from. I was like, "Ooh, this just looks interesting. Let me buy it. It's cheap."
Right.
But I'm assuming that I just heard of the gimmick and I was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. Let me try it."
Okay. For myself, I don't. Same thing. I vaguely remember somebody bringing it. Like I said, I think it was you. I remember most of our initial plays were at like 3, 4, 5 players. It was fun, but I remember it didn't really sit well with me until I started playing it as a 2-player game. But yeah, I don't really, that was so far before I was trying to take any kind of a critical approach to games that I can't even remember what I was expecting from it or anything going into it. Jeff, what about you?
I was definitely the last to get into the game by far.
I'm pretty sure we were playing this game before you even came back to Denver.
Yes, correct.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And all of you people had played with Ant
you people
to the level of ridiculousness of strategy to this game that I had quite a bit to catch up on.
I'm assuming he gave you like 2 notebooks full of strategy. He's like, here you go. Here's the theory of Hanabi.
Yeah, game theory.
When I give you this clue after this clue, when you've just drawn this card, clearly that means you have a Rainbow 4.
Yeah, clearly.
I am not on Ant skill level in any way, shape, or form to play this, which is why I always
enjoyed... Very few are.
Which is why I always enjoyed when Adrian was at the snowboard condo, so he could play Hanabi with Ant all night, and I didn't have to.
Dude, that's one of my favorite ski condo activities is drunken Hanabi with Ant at 1 a.m.
He is very good at that game.
Yes. Right on. Well, then, moving on from all of our vague thoughts about the first initial feelings of Hanabi, we can actually get into something a little bit more concrete and talk about components, especially because there really aren't many.
Depends on the edition you have, to be fair.
True.
You could have the deluxe edition that has tiles.
Yeah, which, man, I actually do kind of want.
I know. Mainly because you get to stack them in front of you. I like that idea.
Yeah.
You don't have to always have your hand awkwardly, like you're going to get cramps if you keep holding all those cards that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cards are cards.
Yeah, I think they're good quality cards. I mean, I've played the shit out of my copy. I know Ant's played the shit out of his copy, and they still hold up fine. They're not marked, so you can still play. Each
of the colors are, well defined, but they also have different symbols on there. So if you're colorblind, you can still tell a difference.
Right, because I was going to say they're not well defined. Like, I I don't have any known colorblind issues, but playing in bad lighting at all, like the blue and the green and the yellow and the white are strikingly similar.
In bad lighting, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they do, like you said, have the unique symbols so that you can at least tell which ones are which in that manner.
Yeah.
I think the game's a lot easier to play with the cards than it is the tiles, unless you have like a weird tray or something, because it'd be hard. They're like thick, smaller, like domino tiles, right?
So you have them laid out in front
You
of you.
have them
like
laid out in front of
dominoes.
you.
Yeah. I mean, do you have a tray?
No,
Oh.
it's just you have them laid out in front of you on the side, and then you can just sort of, because I think they're like, what is that called? Not
Mahjong?
Yeah, mahjong.
Okay.
Like
so
that's
they're thicker.
Yeah, they're thicker. It's not like domino thickness. It's
Okay.
thicker. So you can put them and you could be like, oh, I remember this. You know, you just
And
have
they're
them.
I wish I had a card holder for that, just to be able to, like, my hand
Right.
is only so big.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to have like 5 different things.
Yeah, especially if people keep giving you clues on cards that you can't play yet, and you're just like, okay. Yeah.
Hold this
just
in a unique
dump-
spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
But-
I do have one complaint about the components for Hanabi of a specific edition, which is the metal box,
Okay.
or like a metal tin addition to them. The second those came out of the box, all of them were covered with some sort of like protective layer of some sort, that the first time you like shuffled it, it just exploded into glitter.
What?
Like, yeah, like that's the version I own, because I found it on sale or something like that. It was, I mean, you don't need a metal tin to
No.
hold your cards for the game, but
Are you sure that someone didn't just fuck with you? Because like they have those, you can send somebody glitter
I am
glitter
positive.
bombs.
I am positive. But I have read that other people that have had this same edition is
Okay.
like there's something on the cards the first time you shuffle them, it's just like glitter shit everywhere, and it's just
It's just trying to bring you more into the theme. It's just like you're playing for fireworks, so here you go.
yeah, it's I don't know what's wrong with it, but that's just the way those cards were made.
Yeah, that sounds bad.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it has the little cardboard
Yeah.
tokens. I think all the editions have something.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Pretty
little
similar.
punch outs.
Yeah.
for
Those are-
the
Those are
clue
the pieces,
tokens and for the like track of like your mistakes.
and those are the pieces I've seen the most wear on.
Yes.
And missing the most.
Yeah,
too.
I'm missing 2 of my clue tokens. I have replaced them with an iguana pog and a John Elway pog from
Yep.
my ancient pog collection.
But you can totally use if you end up missing those, or if you're just like, I don't want to have to keep track of those. You could use other things easily for
Yeah.
those.
Basically, you could use coins. You
Yep.
could use a handful of quarters.
Mhm.
That's not a big issue. I do like that the cards. Speaking of like their durability, their edges are white, so you don't see like from the shuffling, you don't see the nicked edges on the
Right,
back of
yeah.
like you do with like some black cards if they're black bordered and then they get nicked and they show that white core.
Yes.
Which I think really helps again with the not getting them marked up to where you can tell what's what without actually getting clues.
Right.
I do really like that the backs are not symmetrical.
Oh,
Back of
yes.
the cards.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're like an
It's a
artsy-
gameplay feature.
yeah, because you can turn them upside down and then like now you can tell that one's positioned differently in your hand. So that kind of gives you like
Not only can
4
you have them in different
ways.
spots, but you're like, well, if it's upside down, it means this,
Mhm.
and if it's
Yeah.
inside out, then you put the card in the wrong way.
Correct.
And then you look away from your cards for a second, and then you look back and you're like, I don't remember anything.
I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
Or you set them down to go to the bathroom and you come back and you're like, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah.
Should have just gone with them to the bathroom.
Yeah.
But then, like, you try and wash your hands, and then you can see you in the mirror. And,
It's lose-lose.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
I long since ditched the box for mine.
Well, that's because you got a
Yeah.
box from Morocco?
Yeah, I was in Morocco and there was some place that was selling these little. They're definitely meant to hold like a carton of cigarettes, but it turns out they hold Hanabi really well. And they were like,
Because the
Like-
cards are a little thinner
yeah,
and a little longer than like normal cards, or just a little thinner than normal
I think
cards?
they're just a little thinner.
Okay.
But they essentially like those things were super cheap. It was like less than $2 to buy 5 of them. And so like I gave Ant a box of it. I kept a box for my Hanabi, and then I've since given away the other ones. But I brought them back to like use as gifts for people I knew who really liked Hanabi. But it works great because now I keep that along with the tin of Mintworks in one deck box.
Right.
And so it's like 2 games in a deck box that's easy to transport, and they're both easy to
Yeah.
play.
But I mean, like even the base game box, it's that standard small, like, two-sided or not two-sided, just two-halved card
Yeah.
box,
So you split the deck in half.
which the mind and the game all use that same box.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
But yeah, that's it for components, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
rules and rules explanation. I think that in some ways this is the trickiest of the games to explain, mostly because it is the biggest change from how you typically play a game. Like,
Yeah.
having the cards facing away from you and like
when I've played with new players in this game, there have been times when I've had to draw the cards for them because they keep drawing it. Because every other time you draw a card, you draw it like and you pull it towards you to where you can see the card when you're putting it back.
yeah.
You can't do that now because you're not allowed to see these cards.
Yeah, I know like when Ant plays, he even with the starting hands, he leaves his face down until his opponent has picked up their hand, because that way if their opponent picks it up and looks at it, he's like, okay, that's now my hand because you're allowed to see that. Here's this one facing the right way.
Yeah, which makes sense.
I think that also like the one thing, this will get a little bit more, we'll touch more on it in gameplay, but I think it belongs in rules and rules explanation too. This is a game where like you almost have to give a little of the meta to somebody to be able to play. Like you need to explain like, hey, you really need to like move your cards through your hand in a like some kind of a logical way.
Yes. And you need to tell the person what that order is.
Yeah.
So
they know like, that you're drawing cards and like your newest ones are over here, your oldest ones are over here, and you're doing a like first in, first out discard pattern. So it's not like, oh, I drew this card and then my next turn I'm going to discard it before I even have a chance to get a clue.
Yeah.
Because that will ruin the game.
I've had that happen with people before, and it can be frustrating. Something else you need to make sure to tell people is when they identify a clue, they can't grab each card individually. So if you have 2 1s in your hand and you're saying you have 2 1s, you can't be like, you have a 1 here and then a 1 here, because that can give you some sort of semblance of play this one and then this one. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, is that actually in the rules?
No, I mean, it says you have to identify them all at the same time, I believe. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I think I just took that to mean like you like in that same clue you have to identify all the ones. You'd be like, sometimes it's really hard if they've got them like spread out. Like it's hard to like, manipulate to touch all 3 at once. So it's like this,
I mean it specifically.
But we played for a while. Yeah. We got really loose with the rules early, where
because this is one of the games where it's
this and then this are red.
Yeah,
that's not.
That's
allowed.
what I mean is that you have to identify all of them in the same way.
Yes.
So either as a group or with the same tone of voice.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't.
But just because you don't want to you can't give anybody any more information than they need. But this is a game about intuiting what the clue that they're not giving you.
Yes. Otherwise, there's not a lot of rules overhead.
It's just a game where you just learn more the more you play, because like there's the basic clues that everybody gives, and then like you said, it's all based on clues, but how you give clues changes as you've played the game.
Yeah, and like when you give clues
exactly,
too, like. Knowing that like, oh, I didn't get this clue until I just drew a card, which means that probably the card I just drew is what triggered the clue, not the other card that happened to be lumped in with it. Little things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like if there's anything weird with like clue giving, keeping track of clues, because like you give a clue and you turn over the token, and so you have a set number of clues you can give, and you only replenish those when you discard a card. And so the important thing to keep in mind with that is just when you get low on clues, like you can run into a situation where like, oh, this like I'll use our last clue to give him a clue. Well, then now, okay, he can't give you a clue. The other player now has to discard or play.
Yeah.
Like you're locking them into that. So you need to make sure that they're ready to do that when you put them in that situation.
You also need to tell people about the makeup of the cards too, because in the beginning version, there's 5 sets. Or the beginning game, basically, there's 5 sets or 5 suits, and each one has 3 1s, 2 through 4s, the 2 of each, and then 1 5.
So the cards get rarer later in the game, which is important because discarding a 1 isn't a bad thing.
Yeah,
and even like if you get a 4 early, it's not the worst to discard that, because you probably won't be playing it for a while. It's just cluttering up your hand, and there's still another 4. 5s, on the other hand. You don't ever want to discard a 5 if you can help it.
Yeah.
Which make those really important clues to give and things.
Especially when you start with 3 of them in your hand.
Yeah. Yes. 100%.
At which point you just
restart the game.
Just restart. You're done.
If you're playing with 2 people, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But right on. I think that does cover pretty much everything for rules and rules explanation. None of these games have, like I said, very heavy rules overhead. So let's talk about gameplay.
Yeah. So
I have played this game at every player count.
I have as well.
I probably have.
I think like overall, this is a game of the clue behind the clue.
Yes.
Especially once you've actually started playing this game, because if I say you have a red and there are no reds played, obviously it's like that's a red one, but you also have another one in your hand, and I didn't want to tell you that one. Or it's basically when you tell somebody a clue, you want them that person should know they're telling me a clue about the entire hand, and yes, they're telling me one card, but they're also telling me what all the other cards aren't.
Yes.
And learning that is basically like learning another game. Like, because you can learn to play the game, but then you're learning to play the real. Yeah.
Yeah, because like another situation where that can come up, especially pretty commonly and early in games, is you have 4 of the 5 ones that are down, and then you draw a card, and your opponent gives you a clue, and they're like, this, and this are all ones. It's like, okay, well, the one that I just drew is the new one. That must be the one that plays. The other ones he didn't tell me about because they match what's already out there. Because if you ever play a card that's already out there, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
And 3 mistakes and you've lost.
Yes.
So.
But that means you do have 2 mistakes that you can just do with no penalties.
Yeah, now you know that those are discards that you can use to get back clues without worrying about. And that's a big part of it too, is trying to give as much information with the clues as possible. Like something I see beginners do a lot that is very frustrating sometimes is they'll be like, you'll have all the ones played, and they'll go to give you a clue, and they're like, this is a 1.
Now,
it's like, you don't need to tell me that because that's just wasting a turn.
Yeah. Now, the only time it's good is if they're like, these 4 cards you have in your hand, they're all 1s.
Yes.
Then you can be like, sweet, I can just start getting rid of cards, because you use those clues early in the game, super early, and then you're always trying to find ways to get those clues back. Now, you can get a clue back by if you finish off a suit by playing the 5, which is always nice, because then you can use that clue to tell somebody, like, even if it's the last one, because you're like, well, here, you play that 5, then we're going to get that clue back, and then we'll still have something.
Yep.
Because you don't ever want to be in a situation where you're just like, I either have to play a card or discard a card, and I don't know anything about my hands. Which, another thing that you learn through the game is nobody tells you anything about your hand, they're telling you something about your hand.
Yeah, especially like in a 4 or 5 player game. Like if it goes a whole turnaround and nobody's giving you a clue, that's your clue.
Yeah.
Like start trashing shit.
And unfortunately, that's something that, like, if you're a new player, you just don't get. You're like, I'm not involved in this game at all. I just, everybody, like, I'm telling people stuff, but they're not telling me shit about my cards. And it's something you have to learn or have somebody tell you.
I make that a part of my teach now.
Oh, no, I say that same thing of, if nobody tells you anything about your hand, they're telling you stuff about your hand that it's shit, and you can just start trashing stuff.
Yeah.
Because if there was anything important in there, you would have known.
Exactly.
Yeah, we would let you know.
Yeah.
And that's one of the fun things about this game, is that it does require like a interesting kind of level of trust between players. I have to trust that you're going to tell me that this card I'm about to discard, like, okay, I know this has been in my hand for a while. It's worked its way all the way across. You've had ample time. I have to trust that you were playing right and that that's an okay card. This card. Now, the worst thing is if it's an early in the game and say you only got 1s and maybe a couple 2s, and so you're watching a 4 go across someone's hand. You're like, oh, that's in their trash spot. Well, we can try that. 4 is fine for trashing. And so then you trash your 4, and it's like, oh no, that's the same 4 they're about to trash, and then they trash it. It's like, oh, those are only 2 4s for that color. Fuck.
Which, in the base version of the game, it's all about getting the highest score.
Yes.
So if you get rid of a suit, basically through that, like get rid of both 3s or even both 2s, it's not the game over. There is a version that's like, if you ever can't complete it 100%, then it's just done. But
that's a dumb way to play. Like, that's because there's enough randomness in this game. Well, like, you can get screwed by the deck.
But that one, though, is you play until everybody's done with their hand too. It's not just Whereas this one, you play until the deck is empty, basically. So if you get rid of a suit, it's fine. You're just like, well, now we just focus on these other things, and now we got rid of both green 2s. All right, well, every green you see, just trash that shit.
Nope, it's garbage.
Yeah.
So we've all played it at pretty much all player counts. So like, I vastly prefer it at 2. I think it's more strategic and like the being able to like give and then immediately get clues. I like that a lot more than like in a 3, 4, 5 player game where it goes around and granted they're completely different dynamics. Like,
yes,
they're very different games. Like in a 3 player game or 4 or 5, the more players you're playing, you have way more information. because
Yeah.
you're seeing, 4 cards, 5 cards in every hand.
Mhm.
So,
Which I think was also something to comment on is that when you learn the game, you learn to use whatever clues people are giving you in context of what everybody else has.
yes.
That if there are 4 5s out there besides yours and they tell you have a 5, you should know what that 5 is without them
Yeah.
saying what color it is. And then that's also when you have a new person telling you information you don't need that
Yeah. It's
you,
like,
you have to sort of learn.
I've already seen that in everybody else's.
Yeah.
And that's where this is a game, especially that benefits from like post-game discussions.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we just got done with this. I remember you gave me this clue. Here's why I thought that was a confusing clue or a useful
Mhm.
clue or a bad clue, whatever
Yeah.
the case may be.
Yeah.
And you can kind of talk through like, what were you trying to tell me with
Mhm.
that clue? Oh, okay, I guess I could see how that would work. Okay,
Yeah.
well, here's how I misinterpreted that. It is another one that super benefits from playing with a similar group over and over again.
Yes, because when you've seen, like when we played with Ant and Ant gives you a clue, it's like you have to, that gif of Zach Galifianakis, like with the math, you have to do that in order to be like, this is what he meant by that.
Yep. I like it more at higher player counts because I like picking off clues from other people's hands that I
Mhm.
can see and stuff like that. As you cut the player count, the skill goes up significantly that you need to play the game. And where at 2-player, it's definitely like a very refined 2-player game.
I think my favorite is either 3 or 4. I feel like my least favorite is 5. 5 followed very closely by 2,
Mm-hmm.
mainly because a bit of that, but also 2 is because it's all random. And it might just be like I've had bad luck with 2-player games. Every single time it's like, well, I have a bunch of 4s and 5s, and Adrian has a bunch of 3s and 4s,
Mm-hmm.
and that's our entire hand. And then so it's like, well, we're just to start getting rid of shit, and then the ones you need aren't coming up with 2 players because there's only 10 cards at any point in time. That
Of the 25 cards in the game.
no, it's no.
Well,
Way more 25.
Yeah, way more than 25. But that by the time you're able to get some of those cards, you're just like, well, we got rid of 2. Like we've gotten rid of a suit that we just can't play past 2, and and it's just more susceptible to bad luck, I think, for the 2-player.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, but I think that's where like what Jeff was saying, like 2-player is much more skill dependent because you have to be good enough to overcome bad luck and granted sometimes like there's been games where Ant and I pull our starting hands and like the rules say like you choose who goes first. Like you can kind of look at each other and be like, do you want to start? Who should start? Like, oh, if you have a bunch of 1s, you'd be like, you start.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so if we're both like, no, neither of us should start. All right, we'll do 1 round of clues. It's like, you have 3 5s. You have a bunch of 4s. Like, all right, well, screw this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is that's not even worth playing through.
Yeah. But I know, for me at least, it's like I wouldn't want to just give up on the game early. So that's where me, I can understand that if you're just like, oh, we'll just trash it, and then, but for me, it's just like, oh, you're just trashing it until you get good hands or good enough hands, not shitty
Playable.
hands, playable
not
hands.
shitty.
No, but so that's in 5. You just get 2. I wouldn't say that it's you.
Well,
have
at that you have to toss in the rainbow, I think, at that point.
Yes, I don't think you have to, but
You should.
you should. So there's also a 6th suit.
Yes.
Which if after you played the base game and you're like, let's
bunch.
add it. Let's add a 6th suit, which is a rainbow color.
Mhm.
And then you can also use it as a wild.
If you're insane.
No.
No, wild's not the most. insane.
No. So that one is you only have 5 suits, and then the rainbow is just whatever color. So if you say, if I say you have 2 red, and then Adrian says you have 2 green, we're pointing at that one both times. Then you go, oh, this must be a rainbow. The worst one is when it counts as a wild, but it's its own suit that you have to play.
Oh, no, see, I think it's worse the other way. I think the one you were saying where like it counts as whatever suit you're giving a clue in.
No, that's what I'm saying.
That's the worst.
It counts as whatever suit, but it's also its own suit.
You can't play it on the green.
You can't play it on the green, but it's a wild.
Oh, yeah.
It's a wild. It counts as a wild, but you have to play it as a wild suit.
Yeah, we play like I always play with it now, but I play with it as a distinct 6
Yeah,
suit.
no.
It's like this and this are wild or rainbow or whatever.
Yes. No. That part is completely. That one's fine.
That one's reasonable.
That one we still play as basic. Like unless it's even with complete, like, unless it's everybody's new except for me,
Mhm.
then yeah.
Even then, I'd still probably just throw it in.
Yeah.
Just an extra suit, not
Mhm.
a big deal. But I think that pretty much covers gameplay for this one.
Yeah.
We won't do final thoughts
No.
here. We're going to do all of the games,
Mhm.
and then we'll do a giant final thoughts wrap up where we'll talk about each of them, and then maybe crown a winner or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll move on to the next of these games, which is The Game. It is a 2015 release from designer Stefan Bendorf, published by IDW Games and Pandasaurus Games. It plays 1 to 5 players, takes about 20 minutes. Zach, do you have a rules breakdown for us?
Yes, I do. In the game, you're just trying to play all the cards in a 2 to 99 numbered deck. There are going to be 4 piles, 2 that are ascending from a value of 1, and 2 that are descending in value from 100. On your turn, you must play at least 2 cards, making sure to follow the trend of each pile. The only exception is if you have a card that is exactly 10 more or less than the previously played card. If everybody is able to play all of their cards, you win. Otherwise, you lose the game.
Which I just lost
Mhm.
the other game.
Yep.
Again, for like the 5th time today.
Yep, that's why I
Stupid
worded
episode.
That's why I worded it like that.
Right on. So this is the second oldest of the games. We're roughly going in chronological order, Hanabi being the oldest of them. However, this is the most recent played for all of us. So for this one, we can actually do a legitimate, what were your thoughts going into the game? Jeff, what were your thoughts going into the game?
You people had talked about the game and that you had played it and heard people saying like, hey, you should play the game because that would go with this. And then I played the game.
Very concise.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you,
Mhm.
Jeff.
Yep.
I felt like I was in a story. Right? It was...
Basically, I showed up to record and then you were like, hey, play this. And I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah. Last minute addition to this episode.
Yeah.
Zach, what about you? What were your initial thoughts going into the game?
I mean, I had seen people talk about this game for a while, basically more or less since 2015 or 2016. I don't remember when I first heard about it. But I know when we were doing a review of this game or review of these games, I was like, I'd heard a lot of people talk about the game in relation to the Mind. And so I made a post on the BGG thread that was like, just as an FYI, we didn't have it. So like none of us had this game, so we couldn't play it. But then on Friday, I was at a game store with some friends and I saw a used copy of this. And I was like, well, I feel like that's Providence.
Yeah.
So I bought it and I'd heard a lot of great things about this. It was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres, right? Or was it the Kenner? I don't, one of the two. I think it was just the regular one. And so I was looking forward to trying it out.
Right on. For me, it was similar. I feel like I had heard negative things about the game in the past that had me not like super interested in it until somebody mentioned when we were talking about doing this episode. They're like, "Oh, you got to throw in the game. If you're doing like Hanabi and the Mind, like you have to play the game. Like it's basically right in that same genre, so
Same style.
Yeah, but I didn't know anybody who had it, so I wasn't really expecting to get to play it. And then Zach showed up and was like, "Hey, I found a used copy of this." So yes, definitely Providence, as you said.
Yep.
Then we played it several times, and it definitely fits in with these type of games that we're discussing. So I'm glad we were able to pick it up and get it into this episode.
Yes.
Components for this game, even simpler.
Yep. It's just a bunch of cards.
Yeah, it's just a big deck of cards.
Same. It's the same box, so it's the same size cards.
It's 102 cards.
Yep. Because it's 2 to 99,
Mhm.
and then there are 4 cards that
Directional cards.
Yeah, 4 directional cards. Yes.
Yeah, which 2 1s and 2 100s.
Yep.
And yeah,
The cards all say the numbers on them, and it has it. Something that I always appreciate, and I believe all 4 of these or all 3 of these that all of these games have in them that have numbers in it. They're on all 4 corners. So as somebody who puts who's left-handed, so I deal my cards out differently.
Yeah.
Or basically the opposite way that a lot of people do, that I can still see the numbers well.
Yeah, that makes sense. That I can see that being very helpful.
Remember, like when we played Indulgence, that was like one of my main criticisms of the game was like the numbers only in the top left. And as a left-handed person, I was like, oh, this is annoying.
It's okay, but the differences between the 9 and the 6 probably could have been designed better.
Yeah, I could see that.
And
They have a dot.
The little tiny dot. Though.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest to be like, oh, that's clearly a 9. That's clearly a 6. A little bit of design change on that would have been okay.
Yeah. Usually, like I tend to like the line, like when they put the line underneath it a bit more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like, and that'd be an easy thing just to print a line under all of the cards so that,
Mhm.
like, then you don't have to do anything special for 9s or 6s.
Yeah.
They're just all.
Is it a 6? Is it a 90? Is it a 60?
the 69.
Yeah.
The one issue I do have with these cards, I could see if I played this as much as Hanabi, they are black
Mhm.
cards, so I feel like repeated shuffling and play could start to show that white core a little bit more, which could give you more information about what cards are what. But
I mean, I don't look at anybody's hands, and I
Yeah.
don't look what's coming up.
Yeah.
So
I don't.
it's not nearly as big a concern as it would be with Hanabi.
no, yes,
I also don't love the color scheme / grimdark. I don't know. It looks like a game from The Purge.
Yeah, yeah, it's got a big skull in the back.
Yeah.
The art and graphic design for it was kind of a weird
yeah, on the back.
choice. I mean, even the front of the cards where the numbers are have like the big skull, and it's I don't get what they were going for there. It doesn't seem to be that kind of intense game, but whatever.
I don't know what game you were playing.
I was playing the game.
Yeah, it definitely goes for a theme that doesn't exist. Was there even anything in the rulebook about like?
No.
No, it's just skulls and stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen some like custom made decks that people have made from other cards that there's like a whole rainbow from like 1 to 100, and that looks cool visually.
Oh, is it travels the rainbow?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
exactly.
That does look cool. I like
Yeah.
that.
I don't know how they made that version, but that seems pretty cool. I mean, all you need is a deck of like 2 to 99. So
They bought a bunch of fucking paint swatches. Those
paint swatches.
Yeah, and then they just cut that and then wrote numbers on it.
correct.
Clearly.
I'm sure those shuffle amazingly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for components. It's a big deck of cards.
The and the piles are easy enough to like one has two have ones on it and two have 100s, and they just basically get, like they have a 1 and then they arrow up from 100 or from 1, and then they have the 100 and they have arrow going down from the 100.
And they even have in smaller, like the 100, the arrow pointing down to
Yeah.
a
2,
two, because
which
you're
is-
going playing
yeah,
2,
and that's the
vice versa.
lowest card you can play, and 1 to 99 because the 99 is the lowest card you can play or the highest card you can play.
Yep.
So
Right on. So rules and rules explanation. Overall, it's really easy to explain.
Yep.
The trickiest thing is the trick
Tens.
play rule. Like, I can't remember what they call it in the instructions. They call it like a trick play or
Uh-huh.
something. But basically, if ever you have a card that is exactly 10 away from the card that's currently showing in the opposite direction the stack's heading, then you can play it. So,
Yes.
like, if it's the 100s that are counting down and you've got an 89 on the stack and you have the 99, you can play that and reset the stack
Mhm.
back to the top.
yeah, but if you had the 98, you couldn't do that.
Right.
So it has to be exactly 10.
Correct. And vice versa on the ones. If you were at like a 17 and you had the 7, you
Mhm.
could bring it back down.
Yep.
Thus giving you room to cover some of those ones you missed when
Yeah.
somebody played the 17 as the second card in
Mhm.
that deck. Sons of bitches.
And I think like you have to play at least 2 cards, but you can't play more.
Yes.
And then you just draw back up to whatever your hand size was. So
yes, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff.
Draw back up to your
you don't
hand
just draw
size.
2 every time, Jeff.
The one time the first time I draw, you're like, and then you draw 2, and then that's
Well,
just
'cause
what I thought the rule was for the rest of the game.
Look, you just can't throw what I said back in my face like it's a valid argument, okay?
Yes.
I'm just saying my words wouldn't hold up in a court of law. So
we all know that.
Yeah.
Your word means nothing.
yes.
Yeah. So you only have to play 2 though until you run out of the deck, and then it switches to playing just 1 card each, which you don't realize how much of a difference that makes until you
Mhm.
get to that point. And it's like, oh, this is so nice.
But you always have to play a card if you
Mhm.
can. So in one of the games we played, it was like, oh, I can play a bunch of these cards. Great. And then the last card I had was like, oh, right. I had this card. Oh, no. This is going to just lock down a pile. I can't play this card yet.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Mhm. Yeah, I think rule wise, it's
All of these are really simple rules ones.
just, yeah,
Count up in
I mean,
2 piles and count down in
exactly.
2 other piles.
So we can move on to gameplay.
Yeah.
My favorite thing for gameplay
Uh-huh.
for this one is we haven't talked about the mind yet, but we will.
Yeah.
But we played the mind first, and so like Zach has already determined that in the mind it's a game of
It's a game. So I was
like pausing and
it was a game of hesitation.
Yeah.
This is a game of disappointment.
yeah. So
Somebody plays a card and then the next person is just
There's definitely more communication in the game.
yes.
than-
Well, because it's it has communication, but it's not concrete. So just like other games, you can't be like, I have a 69 in my hands, but if Jeff plays the 68 and we're counting down, I'm gonna be like, God damn it. You can probably infer that I have a 69 or something similar to it, but
I'm sure you could be more restrictive in if you wanted to.
And the rules do specifically say for the game that you can point to a stack and be like, don't play on that stack.
Yeah.
Like, so they do give you a little bit of leeway in
that. Or don't do a big jump or anything like that, but you can't say
don't play 3 card higher than what's showing.
Yeah. I have a 47, do not play higher than that. You can't say that stuff.
Right. You can say, hey, Jeff, throw all of the cards that you possibly can on this pile before my turn.
And I was like, they're pretty high, and you're like, just don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Put them down.
Yeah. And it would have been great if he had the 99 in his hand.
I wouldn't have said that if he had.
And you had like 70s, and we're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have said it then. I'm not a fucking idiot. I had the 4 highest cards in the game, and I was forced to play at least one of them. So it was like, well, I might as well play all 4.
Might as well fucking blow it.
Yeah. I mean, it worked out well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won that game. We got rid of all of the cards.
100% of the cards gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like the subtle difference in the general feel between this and the mind. And we'll talk more about the mind here in a second. But like this one feels more reactionary.
Yeah.
Whereas the mind is more like
trying to do the best you can.
Anticipation.
Yeah.
Trying to, I don't know, shuriken correctly.
Yeah. So like one thing you always have to think in mind, like, so say you have the 2 in your hand, and the first 2 cards that say Jeff plays is a 3 in one stack and then a 4 in the other stack. That doesn't mean your 2 is useless. And as much as you're gonna be like, Jeff, what the fuck? Why didn't you play those on the same pile? And Jeff's like, oh, I don't know. Just
Jeff is known for going, well, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been quoted as that.
Yeah.
But yeah, because that 2 is still now the lowest card, which means it will play on any of the higher stacks.
But you just want to make sure you're not in a position to where that, because you have to play a card if you can.
Yeah.
You don't want to get stuck in a position where you're like, the only card I can play is this 2, and
the only stack I can play
it on is this 72 for whatever reason, and you're like, oh fucking hell.
That's gonna be a big jump.
Yeah, that's a big jump. Now you can play, like we were saying, you have to play at least 2 cards, but you can play more. So if you're able to do that trick stack thing that we were talking about, like I was able to do on one of the previous ones, where it was like, say Adrian had a 65 there or 64, and I had 35, 45, 55, and 65 in my hands. I could play that 25 and then immediately go 35, 45, 55.
Yeah.
So if it works out with you well, you can gain back a lot of missed opportunities. But basically you watch each one pile go slightly, it's slowly decreasing, the other one's slightly increasing, and you just hope you don't get a stage where it passes the middle and you still have all those middle cards in your hands.
Yeah, because then you're really fucked.
Yeah. Then you're just like, I hope this 55 comes out, because I have a 45, and that's the only thing that's going to let me play this. They tell you to stack all the cards up just to make sure
space.
To save space, but it's I don't remember if there's anything in the rules about you can't look at the cards, but we've been playing that you can look at the cards. So every once in a while, like when you'll see someone trying to think of what they want to play, they'll start going through the deck to just be like, okay, well, I want to play this 25, but there's no 15, so no one can go back beyond it and stuff like that.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting. We haven't played this way yet because we haven't played it enough, but the rules do mention that, like, if you feel like you're kicking ass at this game, one thing you can do is either start bumping up the number, like you have to play 3 cards a turn, which I've seen some of my hands. We would have been done.
So you can choose who starts, just like in Hanabi you can choose, and usually someone's just like going to be like, you have a hand that's just 40 through 60. You're like, I'm not starting first, but unfortunately you're going to have to play soon.
Yeah.
So it's not like the mind where you're just like, I'm just going to wait. I think like because this one adds the requirement of having to play.
Yeah, and having to play like in turn order.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Which is clearly why this one you have the 4 piles to play on. So if one pile gets fucked by somebody's early turns,
you're just like, I had to play this 3 because it's the only thing I could play, and the 13 was played earlier, so this pile is now locked down. don't give a shit about it anymore. Now we're
Yep.
playing with 3 piles. Basically, it's just a game about leaving your options open as long as you can.
Yeah.
Relationship, the game.
Yes.
Right.
Just keep it open. Yeah. Until you just have to like lock that shit down. Yeah. Unless you can backpedal.
It's not backpedaling the game.
It's the game. The game.
The game.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much most of the gameplay for this one. It's easily the one we've played, I think, the least.
Mhm.
So,
But that's also because it's the newest one.
yes.
Yeah,
For
like-
us.
Just so happened to be on a shelf used and within arm's reach.
Yeah.
So let's move on to The Mind. This is a 2018 release from designer Wolfgang Warsch, art by Oliver Freudenreich, and published by Nürnberger Spielkarten Verlag. It will be published here in the US shortly by Pandasaurus Games.
Yep.
It plays 2 to 4 players and takes about 15 minutes. Zach, do you have a rules overview for us?
Yes, I do. In The Mind, you're trying to sync minds to play cards consecutively. Each round, you get dealt an amount of cards equal to whatever round it is from a deck that is from 1 to 100. Then everyone places a hand on their table to sync minds. Then the round starts with somebody playing a card in whatever order the players want. You will get throwing stars that'll let everybody discard their lowest card. If someone plays a card out of order, you lose a life. If you can get through all of the rounds with any life remaining, you win.
That is pretty much all there is to this game. So for initial thoughts, I'll start this one. The first time I played The Mind was at LieriaCon in Portugal, and a bunch of the Germans who were there had brought this, and they were like, oh my god, you guys have to play this game. It's great. It's a bunch of fun. It's basically reverse Hanabi, which I was like, okay. Like, yeah, you have to play a deck of cards in order 1 to 100. It's like, well, that seems easy. They're like,
I just want to say
Oh.
that this is the worst game to try to explain to somebody.
it's such a pain in the ass to explain. But so yeah, that we sat down to play a 4-player game, and like as soon as you start playing, it's like, oh, okay, there it is. That's how this works. That's how this is tricky, and it's just infinitely better with booze. But my initial thoughts going into it, I had no idea what to expect. Like I said, I was at a convention playtesting a bunch of different games, and a bunch of Germans were like, "Oh, you have to play this game that's reverse Hanabi." It's like, well, I like Hanabi. We'll give this a shot. What about you, Zach? What were your initial thoughts for The Mind?
I just heard you coming back from Portugal. You were just like, "Oh my god, the mind, the mind, the mind." And then I was like, "What's The Mind?" And you're like, "It's a game where you play cards without talking." And it's like, that sounds like a horrible game, or it doesn't even sound like a game at all. But I tried it. I was like, I'll still try it. And, as soon as like halfway through the first, not the first round, halfway through the first game, you're like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
I understand.
What about you, Jeff?
I only vaguely remember you talking about it. I remember it was actually, it had, I think there's one copy floating around in our game group.
Yes,
that
Paul.
There is a bootleg copy. Thank you
That's
very
true.
much.
There's one
from
legit copy.
And
one-
technically, you can use the game now to more or less play it. So,
This is also true.
Yeah.
But you guys had played it a bunch before I ever got around to playing it.
True.
And so I heard more about how the game was really good until I finally got to sit around and give it a shot. So I think the first time I had seen it in person was at Epic when everyone was around hanging out and I was just still working.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
oh right, yeah, you watched the display, yeah.
Yes. I watched a lot of people play that game.
Right on. So for components, this is yet another game where it's a deck of cards, albeit a big deck. The main deck is 1 to 100 cards, and then there's a handful of shurikens and a handful of life cards, and then 1 through 12 round cards that determine which round you're in. Otherwise, that's it. I think the card quality is really good. They're solid cards that they shuffle well, they play well, they seem pretty resilient.
Mm-hmm.
They are also black edged, like The Mind, so they might start to show nicks and wear, dings on the edges eventually, but I'm not super concerned about that overall. These ones have, I think, the most interesting art of all of them because it's weird little rabbits
Yeah.
with shurikens
With psychic powers.
and psychic
Mhm.
powers. Yeah,
And then they get more and more psychic powery as they go up in the turns, the levels.
Yep.
I don't know what rabbits have to do with minds, but apparently they're intricately linked.
I don't know what the game has to do with The Purge, but they must also be clearly intricately linked.
Which also like the shurikens in this. Like
One of the level cards definitely has a ninja rabbit on it. So
Yeah.
that's the only reason I give that a pass.
okay. The ninja rabbit.
Yeah, I mean psychics and ninjas, they're
basically the same.
Yeah, they're basically they go hand in hand.
But yeah, there's really not much for components for this game.
Yep.
Like kind of all of them. So
same with this one. I think the 69 and 90, the 6s and 9s could be a little more differentiated. They've got just a little dot on there, but it's slightly less critical in this game because it's just one stack that you have to go up in.
Yeah.
So it's not too big of a deal. You're only just personally trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
yeah, I think we can move on into rules and rules explanation. Not a lot to explain in rules. Like you said, Zach, this is the worst game to try and teach, to tell somebody about. But I think teaching it goes really smooth.
Yeah.
Well,
even then, it's you tell them how to play the game, and they're like, oh, "I get it. We all play cards, but that doesn't make any sense. Because you can't talk at all. You can't make any signals. You can't be like, if I blink, if I wink 3 times, that means 30 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just you play a card. Like somebody starts off the round, and then everybody tries to play all their cards, and that's literally just try and have it be in sequential order, and people can play their cards in any order that they want. I mean, there is no established player order in this.
Correct.
So
you do have to. Each player has to play their lowest card first.
Yes.
So there is that restriction on what you can play.
But you can't say anything about it, and so that's where you're just you tell somebody that, and they're like, "I get it. I understand the words that are coming out of your mouth, but they're not forming an interesting game." And then that's where you're just like, well, just play it. And then even one of our friends, David, we explained the game and he's like, that sounds stupid. And then just watching around, he's like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah. I remember Ant, when I was talking about this, he was like, oh, this is going to be dumb. No, reverse Hanabi, that's stupid. Yeah. But I think it's really grown on him too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So much so that he was giving strategies to Jeff when Jeff was playing. And he's like,
yeah. In my first game.
Yeah.
I really, I think that this is one of the few games where I think one of the best ways to teach is here's the very base rule, and now we're gonna just play, and we're gonna play a couple rounds and just restart.
Yeah. And so you after every whatever round you're on, you deal people that many cards, and then everybody looks at their cards, and then you're supposed to everybody put their hand on the table. And then just sort of look at each other in the eyes and just sort of try and sync minds.
It's way better when you make everyone touch each other's hands.
Yes. We always like to just have each other stack
right on top
each other's hands.
For a lingering amount of time.
Yes. Yeah.
Just long enough to get awkward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And then
people's hands are sweaty.
Yep. And then somebody starts stroking another hands, and then it's like, all right, and break.
It's usually Ant.
Yes.
The only other tricky things with the rules of this are explaining things like the shurikens and how they work. I mean, it's not tricky, but where this has more rules than some of these other games, which I mean, I guess they all kind of have their own little weird twists.
Yeah.
But, the main thing with the shurikens is at any point somebody can raise their hand, which is just saying hey, we should do this. And if everybody else agrees and raises their hands, then you get to use one and you discard the lowest card from your hand.
For everyone's hands.
Yeah.
Everyone discards their lowest card.
And usually just keep them in front of you. And so that way people can know, I got, Agent got rid of an 80. I got rid of a 50. I still have a bunch of cards that are under that 80. So I know I don't have to worry about Adrian playing one of, those cards.
Yeah. And vice versa. I can see okay, everybody else played well under my 80.
Mm-hmm.
I need to not play anything for a while until I see them playing things that are above 80 as well.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the only other thing is that the amount of rounds you play changes
based on player
yes.
count.
So you do a full 12 rounds if you're playing with 2 people. You go to 10 rounds with 3 and 8 rounds with 4.
Yeah, and that's how many cards you get dealt each round.
Yep.
Which essentially works out to playing the same amount of cards roughly per round.
You go
or by the last round.
It's 24 cards, 30 cards, and then 32 cards.
Yes.
So you do get slightly more cards with the amount of people, but it's
indeed.
Yeah.
I think it's easier. The more cards you have in your hand, is actually usually easier because you have a more steady curve of cards being played. Whereas like if on that first round, everybody has one card, you might sit there for forever, and then it's like 74, 82, 85, 99. It's like, oh wow, that sucks.
That's where having people play a round or two just to be like to get the feel of it.
Yeah.
And then restarting. Yeah.
'Cause in this one, you don't really have the whole picture for that whole round. Where these other where like the game you have to play the whole deck.
Yep.
This one you're just playing like you could be playing 4 cards out of that deck.
Yep.
Or 48 cards out of that deck. I guess if you went crazy and did round 12 with 4 player.
Which I don't know why you would.
I'm sure there's some insane people out there that probably could.
Maybe.
That's pretty much the whole deck.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean I like to do all the way up to 100 but solo.
And you still regularly lose.
Yeah,
it's amazing to see.
Special in his own ways.
Yeah.
Right on. That's enough rules and rules explanation. Let's talk gameplay. Although we've kind of already been doing that for this game.
And a little bit of the last one too. Yeah, this, like I was saying, this is a game of hesitation.
Oh my god, it's so great.
Yeah. Because basically, like it's super free form. You know, say I start off, I have a really low card, I play it 2, and then the next card that everybody has, like I have a 30, Jeff has a 34, Adrian has a 32, and we're all just sort of looking at each other, and you're just like, you can't say anything, and you can't do any signals, so everyone's just sort of looking, and then at some point you just have to be like, all right, I just feel like it's the time, like you just have to feel, you're like, it's time.
It's the time for me to play this card.
And then Jeff plays the 34, and you're like, God damn it, Jeff.
Yeah. I waited just bare moments too late.
Yeah.
And then there's the other times, like on the flip side of that, when it feels so great, is like you go through that exact thing where everybody's like, and like then I play the 30, you play the 32, and Jeff plays the 33, and it's like,
yes,
did that just happen?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Or even better when it's like I play the 97, somebody plays the 98, and then I play the 99.
Oh yeah.
You know, like you get that little like back and forth with somebody.
Because it's just like it's just about feeling what, you know, like the gaps. So after you play that 7, at what point are you supposed to play a 17 or a 12 or a 27? If you have a gap between, you have 7 and then 60 and 8 in your hand, usually people are just like, they play the 7 and then they're just like, you can see them like relax.
Yeah, I don't have to do anything for a while.
And if you see someone who is just like putting a card down, they're just drinking, it's like they're not even paying attention to the game, probably have the 100.
Yeah.
They just leave the table, go off, talk to other people.
Yep. Right. Yeah, they'll be like, all right, guys, I'll see you later. Drive away. And they're like, let me know when you guys play your cards.
Yeah, holler at me when you guys are done with this round.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard with both the mind and the game, I think, to really convey how much fun the gameplay is. Like Hanabi, I can talk about like the strategy and how giving clues changes. And there's all this. Like these ones are really tricky because there's not like you're playing cards in ascending order, or in the case of like the game, some ascending, some descending. But you can't even talk during the game. So like, how do you talk about the game?
Yeah, how do you talk about the minds? And especially if you're teaching somebody new, they don't know the timing. And there's not an established timing. It's just the group timing of when does it feel like. So the first couple times you've played, like when you played with Julia, it was always just like, after 5 or 6 seconds, she's like, all right, well, nobody wants to play something, and she plays something like 30 ahead, and you're like, what the fuck, Julie? Like, it wasn't even time for 20. Why are you bringing it to 30? And she's like, I don't fucking know.
I don't know. I just panicked.
Yeah. I just spammed the button.
But then the best time though is when it's so there's definitely a sort of curve with the flow, because the first round everybody just has one card. It is the most unreliable in terms of what the, because it's, if you're playing 4-player, that means every 1 out of 25 in terms of what the number could be.
Yeah.
And so you literally see somebody there and everybody's just sitting there and you're just like, and I remember at one point, Adrian, I think you had a 69 or a 74.
Something like that.
And we were just sitting there silent for like 20, 30 seconds. And you're like,
it took way too long.
And you're like, fuck this. And you played the 74 out of spite. And all of us are just like, I accept this.
All right.
All right.
It's like, oh.
And then we just start looking at each other and you're just like, what?
Oh, God. What? That 74 was the lowest card in this first round? What the shit? Yeah. And those kind of moments are just fantastic. You see people like giving each other like side eye or like looking at each other weird, like trying to figure out. you're really trying to just read each other's minds.
Well, and then somebody pulls out a card, and then they get to play, and then Adrian pulls out his card, and then it makes me like, oh, do I pull back? Is he saying like he's saying that he has a card that's close, but is it closer than mine? Is the fact that I'm going to play a card mean that he wants to play it right after? And you're just going through your entire mind, and then someone is and one of you eventually are like, all right, screw it, I play it. And say I play my card, and his card that he was getting ready to play was the one right over mine. So I played the 36, he played the 37. You always feel that you're like, yeah,
we got the rush of relief. Then other times though, like Zach's about to play a card, like has his hand all the way in the middle. I touch a card, slide it out, and he pulls it all the way back. It's like, wait, what? Maybe, well, really? And then I play, and it's like I play a 15. He's like, I had a 4. Yeah. God damn it, Zach!
Pulled
you
the
had
4
a 4
back. Huh?
Why did you pull the 4 back? Get out of here, crazy bastard!
Right.
But it is, and it's great. Like we were taught in the rules, like it's hard to sell this game to somebody, and it's easy to teach the rules, but the meta of it you don't really get. And it's still funny playing with somebody, and then you can see when it clicks, and they're like, the hesitation. I see how the hesitation works.
Yep. And then like through playing the game, you can learn when to use the shuriken, and not just use it, but to use attempt to use it as a sort of like a barometer, a barometer of every, like if people are like, I don't know, I've got to like using that makes it seem like, oh, I've got one far away. If you have one that's not too far, you're like, oh no, I think I'm good now. I sort of know you guys, your cards are at some point away. I can probably be safe playing mine.
Yeah, there was an example of that. I think it was one of Ant's games. I don't remember who he was playing with, but they've talked about it a bunch. Where like I think it was like Andrew and Ant.
Yes,
just the two of them playing a 2-player game, and they were sitting there forever, like staring at each other, like who's gonna do this, who's gonna do this. And Andrew finally raised his hand to use a shuriken, and Andrew had the 98. Ant had the 99. The 100 wasn't in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So Ant, seeing Andrew say shuriken, told Ant that Andrew didn't have the 100.
Yep.
Which meant that Ant was like, nope, no shuriken. Like, my 99 is now the highest card.
And then that let Andrew know, it's like, oh, if he's fine with that, then he knows that there's no way I can play after him, so then I will play the 98.
Yeah. Which kind of gets into some of the stuff with, like, Hanabi, where, like, just experienced players, you start to read a little bit. That's a very niche situation, but, like, the shurikens aren't usually quite so telling.
Mm-hmm.
But they can definitely give you a good idea of where people are at least feeling with their hands. Like,
Yeah. And you do get more shurikens and lives as you go through the rounds, too, which is good.
Yeah. Like, it's every 3 rounds. You, like, round 1, you get nothing. Round 2, you get shuriken.
Yeah.
Round 3, you get a life.
Yeah.
4 nothing, 5 shuriken, 6 health.
Yep.
So, and they just continue in that.
Yeah. So, what are the lives for? If you play a card wrong, so like we were saying earlier, if, after a couple seconds, Adrian decides to just play the 30, and Jeff and I both had like a 10 and a 12, then you lose a life because you played it wrong. But we get to get rid of everybody gets to get rid of any card that is underneath the card that was just played.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can work out, because if you're like, well, we just got rid of 4 cards for 1 life, maybe that's not the worst thing. But there are also times when, like, you guys are doing great, and then I've had it where in 1 round, cards get played wrong 3 times, and you just lose 3 lives.
Yeah. Just everything collapses.
Yeah. Because even though, like, the sinking of the mines, because you can
call it at any time.
At any point in time, even though it doesn't do anything, it still does something. Like, it does something.
Well, because it does a couple things. One, it gives everybody a chance to just stop and take a break.
Exactly.
So, like, especially, like, I've seen it called a lot after, like, a really tense back and forth where you've nailed, like, a 35, 36, 37, 40, like, that are all real close, and everybody played them perfectly. And everybody's like, oh, it's like, all right, sync. Like, just take a breath, think it through. And then the other thing is that the sync, anybody can end at any time for pulling their hand back. So it gives somebody a chance to, like, if you've just played that sequence, 35, 36, 37, 40, somebody's got like a 42, things got a little hectic.
Yeah.
Now they can be the first to pull back and be like, 42.
So they give it time for, if somebody had the 41 to play it, but they still are like, I'm going to be playing a card, but just enough time so the person with 41 can play it if they need to.
Yeah.
Or someone just fucks it up and is like, 70.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also potentially
Mhm.
happens.
It's like, what are you doing?
I mean, because technically, like on the last round, you could for one life, like
Just
if
be like,
if for whatever reason you
whatever.
had the 90, was it 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, and 100 in your hand,
Mhm.
you could play the 93. Everybody gets rid of all of their cards,
Yeah.
and then you're
But
like,
no, it's only each player only gets rid of one.
no,
their
I'm
lowest?
not. No, it's their. It's if I play 93 as my first thing, if that's my lowest card, everybody has to get rid of every card that's below that card.
Gotcha. I thought it was only their lowest card that was below that number.
No. Well, then how else would you play those other cards, Jeff?
I don't know. I never read the fucking rules.
But no,
I just remember reading a thread on BGG about like a rule to dissuade players from doing that.
which
Responses all were you're only allowed to play your lowest card, so I
Yes.
don't think this change is needed.
no. But I'm like I say, it's only a very small edge case where you have the 8 highest cards in the deck.
Yeah.
You can just get rid of your 93. Everybody plays like in that case. You just do that, and you're like, okay, well, that's it.
I mean, the other reason not to do that is don't be a dick and take the fun out of a game.
I mean,
Right.
and in that regard, you would just be like, you just sit your cards down, and you're like,
I'm
Right.
just sitting here and doing nothing
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah.
Fuck you guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just saying there are small ways to sort of game this a bit.
Oh yeah.
But it would be very hard to do.
Yeah. You're not gonna game it so much you break it.
One other thing is that whenever you're playing cards, you do have to play them all one at a time.
Yeah.
If you have the 2, 3, and 4, you can't just be like, put them all in a pile. You have to go 2, 3, 4.
yeah.
Which usually people are just like, going full speed. But it's to give time. So if you have like a 2, 3, and a 5, it gives a chance for that player with 4 to try and play a card.
Yeah, and I've seen this backfire, like, because of how fast, like especially when things are really close.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh, you played a 2, I have the 4. I want to sneak that in before somebody does something.
Yeah.
Well, I just played in front of your 3 that you also had. Like,
Uh-huh.
you knew you had the 2, 3, 5.
Yeah.
And I got my 4 in there, unfortunately, before
Yeah.
your 3. Yeah, I've seen that happen, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Right on. I think that's about all the gameplay for the Mind.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do final thoughts here,
Mhm.
where give your final thoughts on all 3 games, and then kind of where you put them and why,
Mhm.
like we tend to do on our
Yeah.
compare and contrast episodes. So, Jeff, you've been awfully quiet. Let's hear your thoughts.
All 3 games are similar yet different. Some are better than others. They can't all be the exact same. I guess I'll go from start to finish. Hanabi, great game. I like it at higher player counts.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a big fan of. I mean, I would if my skill level was at the same to be able to play 2-player with you people, but it's not.
Gotcha.
I like playing that game a little more with newer people that don't have like the crazy strategies down. It changes up the game.
Mhm.
I get yelled at a lot less.
I mean, really, it's just Ant that's yelling at you.
I understand. I love how Hanabi's it's super cheap and available everywhere, and it's a fantastic game to pick up for pretty much any reason. It definitely should belong in most everyone's collection.
Unless you just don't like cooperative games
Yeah.
and are a horrible person.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, then you're a horrible person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you just don't like working with people. That just makes you a bad person.
Yeah.
Correct.
The game is interesting, but I don't like it as much as the Mind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't the game's cool where you just kind of have the 4 stacks and there's a little more communication to the game, but I believe the Mind has supplanted everything that the game does in every way, shape, or form, and like I would 1,000 times rather play the Mind than the game at any time besides current availability, because it's just more fun to play the Mind with how descriptive we've been talking about it, and just how you can't say you can't tell anyone like why the Mind is fun, but you have to play it, and the game is just sort of like, okay,
Yeah.
this
show not tell.
yeah. And the game, it's got that cool mechanic where you can kind of plus or minus, and it's fun to see how cards come out and best way to do that.
Mhm.
But I'd rather just do that with the Mind because it's just more fun.
Okay.
So I'd definitely put them in order of the Mind, Hanabi, and then I don't know, the Purge somewhere distant, distant third.
Okay.
I did see that there is like some expansions they've added to the game that make it so like the on fire cards to like when they come out, you have to like immediately play them, so it can kind of make some bumps in the road on the way to playing. I guess that's the main version they sell now, not the one that you ended up picking
Oh,
up.
okay.
Okay. What about you, Zach? What are your thoughts?
I'll follow the same sort of thing with Jeff. Jeff just did.
Jeff done did.
Yep, Jeff done did it. Hanabi is a great game. I also like playing with slightly higher counts with newer people, but not too like I love playing with people on their second game of Hanabi. So but yeah, basically just explaining to them the stupid things that new people do, just to be like, don't do these things and then you'll be good. It's sort of it's a little annoying to have to tell people, but I mean it could be like it's I don't like telling people how to play games.
Right.
But it's like play it like this and we'll get along great. Once people get too into this game though, it starts to lose me a bit. Like when we were playing with Ant and literally any amount of drunk was too drunk for that for me. Cause I was just like I know all the like, and I was like I can't remember all of these clues and and it just like with two people, it just felt like too much of the pressure was on you to remember everything. But I think I would say my main problem with Hanabi is just that I've just played it too many times now. I think
Okay.
I still enjoy it, but it doesn't pull me in as much as it used to.
Right.
But I agree with Jeff that anybody who likes cooperative games, this is a great game for. This is a great gateway game. This is a great game to be like would you like to play a game that plays differently than any game that you've played? Any of these mainstream-esque games that you've played. I think this is a great one, and it's a great value for its size. It travels great. It's a great. Not only does it travel small, it's a great game to bring for traveling, I think, too.
Yeah.
It's a tight package.
Yes, it is. In the same tight package, the game, I like that it is another take on the card placement style one. I like that this is a game of, like I was saying, is a game of disappointment of just every time you play, you're just like because you don't even know what card they're going to play, but as soon as they play the card, you're like, that was not the card. That was the card I did not want you to play. And then, but I like that there are ways to come back from, like, not only are there ways to come back from it, but it's like you have to have that sort of thinking of, I have low cards. That doesn't mean like I have to play them on the low side. I can keep them later for the high side that's coming down. But you have to, like, there are times when you want to play a lot of cards, and I just find that like it was a great game for interacting with, like, having other people just dismissively sigh at you whenever you play a card.
Yeah, because it's interactive, but
Yes.
it's not immediate failure.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Which a lot of these other games are.
Yeah. It's you fucked up by playing that card. Now, how do I try and I think that's always the thing I've always liked is like, this has been you just fucked it up. Let's try and fix this shit.
Yeah.
And you just keep getting things like just keep breaking and you keep trying to tape them, sort of shit.
Yeah.
But the mind is another version. It's the opposite version of that.
Yeah.
Where you're just playing this card, but you just can't say anything. So it's all about, like I said, it's all about hesitation. It's just trying to figure out the just the flow and the timing of the entire group. This is also one like Hanabi where I like you want to play with someone a couple times to be like, you get it now? All right, now let's play for real this time. And it feels great when you play it right, and it always feels so soul breaking when you get it wrong. You're both hesitating. It was a big jump, and you got one off. I had the 35, you had the 36, and you played the 36 right before me. And it's always just like, oh, we were so close. It would have been great, Jeff. You failed me. You failed us.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have not played the mind with you.
No, you have not.
Put that on the record.
Yes.
Uh,
But yeah, I think for me, my rating would be the mind. In terms of how good I think the games are, I think it would be the mind, Hanabi, and then the game. But personal for right now, what I'd want to play, it would be the mind, the game, and then Hanabi. But that's just because I've played Hanabi so much.
I did find out the exact rules for that on Fire. It's 6 cards.
Okay.
22, 33, 44, 55, 66, 77. It replaces those cards.
Oh, okay.
And whenever those get played, the person after you has to cover them by the end of their turn or you lose.
What the fuck?
But that seems like an easy thing. Like, I would just have to draw flames on the card.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, are we playing with flames or are we not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's all it is.
Yeah.
But that seems like a more interesting.
I would
variation.
agree with that, and I might do that.
I could see at least like adding it.
Yeah.
So for me, I love Hanabi. Like, there's no doubt about it. Hanabi is one of my like most played games of all time. It's one of my favorite games. Like, I love it at 2 players. I love the much more in-depth clue giving. Like, I love playing with Ant. It's on a whole nother level from any game of Hanabi. Like, playing with Ant has ruined playing Hanabi with almost anyone. Like, Zach, when you're like, I want to play with people on their second game, like, I shuddered inside. Because like there's gonna be so many mistakes and they're not gonna understand my clues and the depth isn't there, and like unfortunately for Hanabi, it's gotten to the point where I really only want to play with somebody like Ant, and there's really only one person like Ant, and that's Ant. And so I don't ever really want to play Hanabi with other people.
I mean, I'll tell you this: we've played it like at least half a dozen games with just you and me, and we're always just like, fuck this. This is just too frustrating. Like
Yeah.
our.
Like Megan and I don't even play it together anymore. Like I've stopped bringing it when her and I go out to the bar. Like it used to be one of our go-tos, but like playing with Ant has put it on a whole nother level where if somebody else isn't on Ant's level of strategy and clue giving, then I just get too frustrated. It's like, no, screw this. I don't want to play anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, unfortunately Hanabi does not get played nearly as often as it should for how much I like it. As for the game and the mind, man, they are similar, and there's a lot I like about both of them. I like the way the game forces you to play, even when you don't want to.
Yes, yeah.
Like that creates a level of tension that is just fantastic, and I really
How do I do the least amount of damage?
Yeah.
exactly like
There's either going to be a 20 jump here or a 25 jump here.
Yep.
and which one.
And both of them were piles that my cohorts are like, don't touch these 2 piles. I'm like, those are the only 2 I can touch, and I have to play on both.
Yeah. And
Touch them all right.
Yeah.
And even beyond that, not only does it force you to play when you don't want to, it forces you to play twice for most of the game when you don't necessarily want to. But at the same time, it does offer options, you know, having the 4 different stacks and the way those work, you know, you're not screwed if you don't get to play your 2 early. Like, you have a chance to maybe play it at the end on one of the other piles. And especially for like the 2 and the 99, you'll always have a chance to play that.
Yes.
Like,
there's literally no way to play.
They just hog up space in your hand.
You're like, I don't want to. This is now 1 card that I can't play, so there are now 5 cards that I have to choose 2 from.
Yeah. So I really love that. However, I mean, for the game, or for the mind, I mean, I absolutely love the hesitation you see, like when 2 people are staring each other down across the table, slowly pushing their card out and then pulling it back and doing this like, and then you play them and they're in the right order. And, oh, yes, perfect, fantastic. Or you don't, and failure. It's great. It's so much fun. I think that for me, the difference between those 2 would ultimately come down to the situation. I think that the mind is one I'd prefer to play, like hanging out here at the house, you know, as a precursor to some other game where we're waiting for someone to show up or something. You know, we're not very distracted. Like, it just, something about the game seems to fit that more. Whereas the mind works great, like out at the brewery, out at game night, having some beers, like you're a little foggy from your drinks and you're just like, I don't know when should I? And it, that little added uncertainty from the environment makes it that much better. I remember like there's been multiple times playing the mind at game night where somebody's come over and I started talking. And it's like, I have a high card. I'm just going to talk to them. And I'm talking, like, oh, by the way, guys, I'm still playing. Like, I'm just not doing my turn.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that backfires horribly because somebody's like, oh, you've been waiting this long? Here's a 63. What? No, that was not. That's too much of a jump from the 10 that was there before. I had a 52, damn it. But other times, like, it's been great. I've done that. And they're like, oh, okay. And then somebody plays. And then I still like, I'm still playing, but I'm going to keep talking because
just going to hang out
nowhere
over here.
near that number yet.
Yeah. It can drag the game a bit if people don't know
that you're playing.
They're
like waiting, like, oh, let him finish this conversation.
And then you're like, oh, I guess nobody wants to play a card. Because nobody's playing, and then you can play a card. And like, what? I had something that was 5 higher. So yeah.
I think for me, ultimately, man, it is so hard to choose between those two. I didn't think I would like the game as much as I did. It really swooped in here at the end as a dark horse. I think I do prefer the Mind. I think it is just a little bit simpler.
I think it has better moments, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I think is the
and
big
it's the most
deal.
unstructured
Yes.
of all of them.
Yeah, so it lends itself to just things working perfectly or crashing terribly. The game is
It's that slow, steady decline of you're just like, it's not going to get any better. It's not. It's getting worse. It's just slowly getting worse and worse and worse.
And then the first purge happened.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that the first Purge movie is just them playing this game.
Yes, that's what it was.
So for me, I love all three of these games. They're really all three great games. It's hard for me to put one or the other above them. I think 2 players, Hanabi. Like I would always, at a 2-player count, I'd prefer Hanabi. I think that 3, I might prefer the game. Anything above 3, definitely the Mind. I couldn't imagine playing the game with 5 people.
No, that's
Having
rough.
to wait that long between and just watching piles get higher and higher. And
you play a card, and then the person to your left plays a card, and you're like, everybody, do not touch that pile, and everyone's just like, I can't, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So
I will say I really like playing the Mind at 2-player. I thought that was a lot of fun.
I've enjoyed the Mind at every player count. I've played it at every player count. I think it's a really good game. I'm just trying to find some way to separate them. And it's hard for me. They're all really good. I think that these will all 3 be games that I will play at different times.
Does the fact that you've played Hanabi so many times dull it at all?
No.
Okay.
No, for me, because I love how much it's like I said, this is why I have a hard time playing with new players. Like, I like playing with Ant because I like that we've reached a level of strategy that's like way down that line. We're on a whole nother plane when we give clues. And
I'll just enjoy my simplicity.
yeah, so
My simple life.
Playing Hanabi for me, the more I play it, the more depth I find in it, and the better Hanabi has gotten the more I've played it. I wasn't overly impressed with it the first 2 times I played it. It wasn't until I really started playing with Ant and learned how in-depth the clues can get that I was like, oh, it's not just a random shit fest of what bullshit cards you draw that ruin everything. So yeah, I like all 3 of them. I can't really put one definitively above the others. They're different enough. I think, yeah, except Hanabi at 2, the game at 3, everything else the Mind. That's how I'm going to rank. That's how I'm going to separate them. That's the best I can do.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, just say that again.
Hanabi at 2.
At 2 players.
Yes.
Okay.
The game at 3.
Okay.
The Mind at everything else.
Okay. So 4. Literally, you can only play 2 to 4.
So yes.
Any other conceivable player count that is 4?
I mean, I can't see any other option. I don't think
Because Hanabi can play 5,
Right.
which you wouldn't do.
No.
What if you were playing with 4 ants?
No. No.
I'd like to see that.
I would too.
Full wilds, full wild suits.
It would end in murder.
I don't know.
The 4 ants would murder each other.
I don't know. Or it would just go perfect.
Maybe.
The perfect game of Hanabi.
Yeah.
Um,
That's also how the Purge started. We can do anything. Rules don't apply to us anymore.
All right. Once a year.
Yeah.
So, no, I also don't see many options when I'm going to have to choose, like, oh, what do you want to play, the Mind or the game? Like, if somebody's offering me that, I'm going to paralyze up and lock up. Like, I can't choose.
It's AP.
I can't choose. But I don't see that happening very often, especially considering who owns what games. It's going to be like, oh, they're playing the Mind over there. I guess I'll play the game. Oh, they're playing the game over there. I guess I'll play the Mind.
I'm literally going to do this on Wednesday. You know that, right?
Oh.
Do you want to play the game, or I just hold my copy of the game, or do you want to play the Mind? Because you can do both.
Yes. Yes, you can.
Yeah. And guess what? You can also play the Mind, or the game with the Mind, too.
Also, you could do that.
Yeah. Just blew your mind.
God damn it.
Use
Shut
the
up.
life ones to
Yep.
count up. Use the shurikens to
Exactly.
count down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
So that's always the choice.
God damn it. Now I'm clearly just never going to play either of them ever again.
Yeah.
But yeah, that wraps up my final thoughts on them. They're all 3 really good games. I love all 3 of them. This is a style of game that really suits me. So yeah, right on. That wraps up our review of these 3, comparison, all of that. If you are interested in acquiring any of them, they are all available in varying ways. So Hanabi is easily the most available. You can find it for typically under $10
Yes.
if you're willing to look for it, which it is easily worth that in my book.
And is available pretty much literally everywhere at all times.
Yep. The game, you're not going to be able to find the version that Zach has. You're going to find the On Fire version that Jeff was briefly talking about there. It still runs right around $15 plus or minus a couple bucks depending on where you go. So there's still plenty of options to find the game. The Mind is the trickier one. It is still not super available currently. You can find it on Amazon for $25-ish.
Too much dollars.
And there are options on BGG through the Geek store for imported versions from Europe that are pretty much all the German versions for around €10 plus shipping, which you're shipping across the Atlantic. So probably also spending too much. But if you're patient and you don't mind waiting a little bit, Pandasaurus is going to be publishing The Mind here in the States very soon, an English edition.
I want to say June was the last estimate for The Mind hitting the States.
So if you're just patient for a couple more months, it'll be here and should hopefully also be in that like $10 to $15 range.
Yeah. Or just buy the game and be able to play both.
Yes.
Yeah. Just have to make up some shuriken
Yeah.
and health cards.
Tokens.
Yep.
But they are all three available in varying amounts and orders. So, yeah, that wraps up all of the review stuff. We didn't have any emails for any of these games.
No.
But we did have a couple BGG responses.
Yes.
Zach, you got those ready?
So this is also Mark says the game takes 1 minute to learn and 10 minutes to play. This is also before we were officially doing the game on this. So if you want to, you could run a play or two during a pre-show, so you could at least give it an informed dimension. Worth it for how great the game is itself, and because it's basically perfect, and it's basically perfect app implementation. Cheers, MJ. Well, MJ, it worked out.
Yeah.
We were like, let's give it a play, and then we're like, all right, well, let's just review it right now.
Let's just throw it in.
Well, it was like, oh, there's a copy. Oh, let's play it. Oh, let's throw it in.
Yeah. And then for Jeff, it was, oh, hey, you're here to record real quick. Let's play this so that you can talk about it a little bit.
Yep. Next one is from Todd,
who also responded on Twitter, but we're just going to read the one.
Yeah.
Because they're exactly the same.
Yeah. I've played them all and then some. Here are my rankings.
This one, again, was before we decided to omit the Grizzled.
Yes.
So it starts off with...
Number 4, the Grizzled.
Yeah.
Not great. Played it a few times. Too fiddly. Weird feel to it. Sold my copy.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
The rules. It took us a lot of rules readings and plays before we got them all right.
And then the expansion fixed it basically
because it made all the stuff we were playing wrong the rules.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Number 3, Hanabi. Good game. Usually we'll be up for it. People cheat sometimes. People have bad memories. This is mostly all solved by the mind. You can definitely cheat in Hanabi. I know that there's like one of the friends and someone who's been on the show, Richard, he just doesn't play it anymore because like developing a system on how to give clues and stuff to basically tell people extra information. And it's just like, don't do that.
This is a 1.
Yeah.
And this is a 1.
Yeah. Or it was just like certain things of how you touched reds and stuff was like determine what numbers it was and stuff like that.
Like 1 finger means play this first. 2 fingers mean second. 3 fingers mean third. But this is a red. This is red. This is a red.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could totally game it if you want to, but why? It takes the fun out of it. Play by the rules.
Yeah. Don't game the game. Said you should play the game.
Continue with his list.
Number 2, the game. Played this one over 150 times.
Holy shit.
One of my most played games in my collection, only eclipsed by The Mind recently.
And you've already played over 150 games of The Mind? Is that what that means?
Anybody want to guess what number 1 is?
Is it The Mind?
It is, mainly because the other ones are like, this is good, but it's not The Mind. Number 1, The Mind, it's the best. So tense and full and tons of laughter. My pick for the 2018 SDJ winner.
Spiel DR.
Yep.
I actually wouldn't be surprised if it did end up winning Spiel DR.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to get a nomination, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if it won.
Yes, so. I'd agree with that.
Right on. That concludes listener feedback. So we're pretty much all done here, except for final contact information. If you want to email us, you can do so.
Emails at milehighgameguys.com.
You can also join our Board Game Geek Guild, guild number 2731, where we have the threads up about the review episodes and discussions we're doing. You can contribute over there. You can also get a hold of us and follow us over on Twitter. I tweet under at MHGameGuys.
I am Zach_MHGG.
And I am Jeff_MHGG.
We also have Facebook and Instagram /Mile High Game Guys. And we are proud members of punchboardmedia.com with a bunch of other awesome content creators out there who have all teamed up to have one go-to spot to check out all of our content, whether it's written, video, audio, whatever. You can find all of it on punchboardmedia.com. Bunch of awesome people over there, so go check that out. And yeah, I think that pretty much concludes everything for this episode.
Yeah.
Be sure to tune in next Wednesday for our normal banter episode sponsored by Gray Fox Games. And we'll yell and curse and talk then. So, as always, I've been your host, Adrian.
I am still Zach.
And I'm going to go play God of War Jeff.
Bye.
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 Published by Nürnberger Spielkarten Verlag.
Is it German?
Yes, it was
Yes.
originally German.
Oh.
It is going to be
That
brought.
That was sarcasm, by the way.
Was it?
God damn it!
Yeah.
It will be. It will be.
You get my sarcasm?
I hate you
Yeah.
guys.
Okay. We hate you too.
Yeah. Published by Nürnberger Spielkarten Verlag.
Honestly, it always just sounds like you just have like cotton in your mouth whenever. Yeah, you gotta with purpose. You gotta speak it.
You guys are ruining this.
Uh huh.
Mm-hmm.
Punchboard Media,
where we all
bring something
to the table.
Pull up a chair
at punchboardmedia.com.